thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who almost didn't review the song Channel Number 3 by Lupe Fiasco because I was afraid that I missed channels 1 and 2. It's true. And the question that you have to ask about this song, is it just about video games? Is he being a silly Billy? Is he just being a silly Billy, just writing a nostalgic fun track about how fun it was to play video games as a kid? Remember nostalgia? Yay. Member berries? Sega? Yeah. Or is it something a lot deeper and much more serious? I'd like to remind you that the first Lupe Fiasco album I ever heard was House, his EP. And on that album is what is probably still my favorite Lupe Fiasco song, Dinosaur. Now, when I heard Dinosaur, I was very moved. I thought it was an amazing song. I also thought it was silly as hell, and it was just a song about dinosaurs. And that's what he was trying to do. He's making a goofy song about dinosaurs for his nephew or niece, I forget exactly who. And then also, he was going on this crazy riff, this intellectual exploration of the meaning of dinosaurs in our world. He managed to do these two things at once. And I was surprised to read the discourse around it because, very few people got it. Most people were just like, Lupe clowning, bro. Why'd you talk about dinosaurs? Well, Lupe's not clowning, bro. But also, hey, maybe he is, maybe we need to allow artists to do what sometimes artists do best, which is be silly and serious at the same time. And so when I'm analyzing this song, Channel Number 3, I'm going to be doing both at the same time. I'm going to be talking about it as somebody who is a lifelong video game player, who can relate to this in a lot of very deep ways. And then I'm going to be someone who analyzes it from a deeper level, trying to understand the other points that he's making. And I think it's important. I've been talking about this a lot lately. I haven't been meaning to, but it pops up a lot. It's about the range of expression that hip-hop has. In general, hip-hop has policed itself, and the public has policed hip-hop, and basically said there's a certain range of expression you're allowed to have, and there's a certain range of topics you're allowed to speak on. And in general, for a long time, if it was nerdy, if it was perceived of as being suburban, white, and nerdy, then you couldn't really talk about it. And I think that's part of it gets overlooked with the Wu-Tang Revolution, but just that they were nerds. RZA's a nerd. He's also a super badass, whatever, chess master, kung fu master, genius, and all that stuff. But when he's talking about kung fu movies, he's just being a nerd, which is great because I almost became a kung fu movie nerd. I saw that Shaolin movie before I heard of Wu-Tang. I can kind of relate to this. And what ends up happening is that now that the range of expression of hip-hop is slowly opening up, or rap music, I'll call it rap music, because Lupe Fiasco is very insistent on not confusing the two terms and when I hear him speaking, so I want to respect that. So as rap music expands what is able to be talked about, it also means that it becomes more relatable to more people. So this is a song, I can't relate to Lupe Fiasco's experience. I don't know what it's like to be black in America. I didn't grow up with divorced parents. I didn't grow up in Chicago. I haven't done any of the things that he did. Any of the material conditions of his upbringing, I cannot relate to. But when he talks about video games, that I can relate to. And this is why we need the palette of rap music to open up. We need songs like Dinosaur. It's okay if I can relate to it, okay? I don't watch wrestling, but a lot of white kids watch wrestling. A lot of rappers watch wrestling. How sweet is that they can connect on that level and they can have this whole conversation and it transcends the usual questions of, are we talking about systematic oppression? Are we talking about gangsters killing each other? So, video games. First of all, second of all, third of all, how many points have I made? Doesn't matter. Next point. How many good songs are there about video games? I count 2. I'll let you think about them. Number 1, obviously, is video games, which isn't even about video games. It's sort of about it. I mean, that's a beautiful song about the way that women are marginalized in male spaces and the way that they're expected to meet men's expectations and desires at all times and subjugate their own wishes to the wishes of a group of men. Okay? So Lana Del Rey's Video Games is a great song about video games, even if it's not about video games. I personally would say my favorite song about video games is the song Shipwreck by Mode Selector featuring Tom York. It's not even really about video games. It sort of is. It's like you run, you jump. It feels like it's sort of a Tom Yorkian analysis of what it might be like to be in a video game, and maybe a statement about what video games are like and how our life is like a video game. But beyond that, I can't think of anything else. I can't think of any other good songs about video games. There's plenty of good video game songs, okay? Choco Mountain theme from Mario Kart 64 is one of the greatest melodies ever written. Bam, 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 bam. But whether or not there are great songs about video games, more need to be written. And what I like about this, on one level, it is a nostalgic song. It's about the warmth and happiness of childhood, even in tough times. Materially, I was set. Emotionally and spiritually, I was not set growing up. So when I think about playing River Raid on the Atari 2600 or playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on the NES, it's happy memories, but they're all clouded with like my dad yelling at me or feeling ashamed or all sorts of other weird stuff that was happening in school. When I think about playing like Toe Jam and Earl with my friends in the basement, it was good, but it's also like hiding. Think about Mortal Kombat 3. I got so good at that game that I didn't really study in high school, and I was really just sort of using that as a way to get away from my own thoughts. Like video games are the kind of hobby where it's easy to talk about them and have them unexamined. But when you examine them, especially when you examine the importance they had on you at an important point in your life, often a darkness comes up at the edges. So it is a very nostalgic song. I mean, the title itself, Channel 3, that's one of those, IYK UK, If you know, you know. Channel 3 used to be you had to set up a TV. I don't mean to be rhyming. Every word rhymes to me. You get the RF connector and you'd screw it in, and then you'd have to set it to channel 3 in order to play the video games. I'm pretty good with technological stuff like setting up TVs and stuff because my parents wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it. So if I wanted to play Nintendo, I had to figure out how to get this damn thing with a little RF connector into the back of my weird RGB TV, right? So even that right there, right there, it's not just a song about video games now. It's a song about video games then. And a lot of it's about what video games mean to us, humanity. Okay? Just what they mean, in particular, to people of, he's like probably 10 years younger than me, but roughly my generation, If my Nintendo could talk and the door was a jaw, and the cartridge was a tongue, it'd say, come, you can meet the final boss if you don't take a loss, so just know when to run or when to jump or just when to slide. Know where the secrets are, know where the treasure hides. Pleasure televised, computer terrorized, but I got a cheat code so I'll never die. This first verse is like a nice, comforting reminder of the simplicity of video games. In video games, there are laws, and the laws of the video game tell you what you can and can't do. Right? And within that, if you follow a certain set of rules, you can succeed. Now, unlike life, there is a kind of fairness to it where if you work hard enough at it, you will be rewarded, which is not always true in real life. So there's also always at the same time perhaps a secondary thing going on here where he could be describing life in a tough neighborhood, growing up, nowhere to run, nowhere to slide. And then this cheat code is another beautiful idea. Growing up, what was that? Nintendo Power Magazine or Friends on the Playground, whatever it is, like you get the cheat code so you can never die. This very, very reassuring feeling. And this first verse is the one that reminds me most of Shipwrecked by Tom York and Mode Selector. By the way, if you've never heard that song, you are welcome. Good Lord, that's good. Then we get to the chorus. And you notice I haven't even talked about the beat yet. Apparently he produced the beat himself. Awesome. There's a lightness to this beat. This is a summertime beat. These nice kind of blared out horns and a catchy chorus. Video games, and my mama's house. And what's great is that it's this like perfect summer anthem, but the theme is spend warm summer days indoors. Like it's a song about not going outdoors, not being in the summer. It's about being in your basement playing video games. But then we get to the chorus, which is actually the nut. Like, the first verse kind of eases you in, and you might think it's this nostalgic rant on needing Channel 3 and all that. For those of you who have played Toe Jam and Earl, you're welcome I reminded you of that game. What, the Funkatron? Is that the name of the car? God damn. You got the rocket skates? You are just stuck. Okay. The chorus. Video games, silly old things I be playing in my mama's house. So, silly old things. He's talking about it being silly. He's drawing attention to it. He's saying he's a silly Billy. He's saying a silly Billy. But then how does it end? In my mama's house. Okay? Here we're getting the... Okay, what does that mean? That means that that's not his dad's house. That means both of his parents are in the picture. That means that they do not live together. That means that this song, up until this point, is about playing video games at his mom's house. The pain of divorce, the refuge in video games. I am telling you, video games are so gendered and so racialized. They really are. When you think of a gamer, you think of a guy who looks like me and had my life experience. You don't think of a girl or a woman, and you don't think of a person of color. But of course, the same way that I would sit there and play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and sort of kind of hope that my dad wouldn't yell at me, hey, of course, the Hispanic kid 50 miles from me was doing the same. Of course, Lupe Fiasco, 1,000 miles away from me, was doing the same. Are they silly old video games? No, they're not. They're serious. At my mama's house. You know, it's funny because obviously the best rap lyric of all time, no offense, Lupe Fiasco, about video games will always be just... This is the thing. This is why Biggie sucks so bad. Because you'll never do better than him just saying Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Just that mouth and that throat producing those syllables is better than any rapper will ever be able to do. But, you know, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, when I was dead broke, I couldn't imagine this. What I think is interesting about that is that I've always read that as him being so rich that he could buy a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis, because that was in the 90s, where, you know, you wouldn't have both. But, you know, now looking back at it, this song is sort of like saying, what if you're rapping about being dead broke, but having those video game systems? The second verse, I don't follow. Please tell me in the comments, by the way. If you know other good video game songs, tell me about that. But also, how well do you understand the second verse? Because this feels to me like it's turning a lot more. It's using the term plug, which is often a drug reference. You know, controller 2, get inside, plug for the team. We need Trace to help because it's quite hard. Stick a knife in my life bar, save it at the right part. So it seems as though he's doing this kind of double speak where he's talking about life on the streets. He's talking about life on the streets. He's talking about life on the streets, and he's talking about video games all at the same time, memorizing the maps, a collection of positions. The great chorus comes back, and then we have the third verse punchline. The reality of the split household. Because apparently, at his dad's house, which, if I remember correctly, my Lupe knowledge, his dad was like a dojo master of Chicago, like one of the great grandmasters of some form of martial arts, karateka. That's a video game. An oddly difficult video game. Oh my god, I could not play that game at all. Anyways, and so he describes how in his basement there are video game cabinets, which makes sense because sometimes dojos or whatever, like martial arts places, it would be a thing where also they'd be sort of aftercare. So you could go there and do karate or kung fu or jeet kune do or whatever it is. I don't know the kind of martial arts that is. Tell me in the comments if you want. I respect them all. I don't know anything about them. All I know is karateka. But so, like, this is a fascinating little detail in here because he had an arcade, so he's super lucky. But just let's listen to this verse here. Before the TurboGrafx magic and the PlayStation Nation, my dad had the cabinets all in the basements. So going downstairs was like taking a vacation, a kid in an arcade, my daily situation. We used to have floppy disks. Okay, so right there he describes it all. And we have this weird dichotomy of the Nintendo and the Genesis at his mom's house and then the arcade at his dad's house. And I think this is something we can all relate to. You know, my kids come from a divorced household, and we were listening to the song, and I mentioned that was the point. And my daughter was like, yep, we play Just Dance Michael Jackson at Mom's house, and we play Ocarina of Time and Breath of the Wild at Dad's house. That's how we do it. So, and hey, divorce sucks, but that's a pretty good dichotomy right there, you know? I mean, Just Dance is super fun. I don't play it. But you know, so in a way, it's like he's describing the super positive moment in a negative moment. We used to have floppy disks. CDs was a major innovation. I remember Commodore 64 quarters going to the store to war, but wasn't nothing like sitting on the floor, flipping up the door and slipping in the game and remember the code and forgetting you was poor. Okay. The second punchline is that you can own video games and be poor. And there's something about that, remembering the code, forgetting you're poor. This great bittersweet song. Much like the dinosaur song, hey, it's a fun this, that, but also it's a very bittersweet child memoir. GG's my G's, good game, my guys. West Side is logging out, one hand on the WASD, other on my mouse playing. WASD is on the keyboard, WASD, indicating that he is still playing video games now, right? That he's playing today. So there it is. There's this goofy, fun summer song that's stuck in my head. Super duper duper bad. It's a very catchy, very smart, very moving song. Those of you who play video games, check that out, huh? Got almost every major Nintendo controller back there. Gaming. You ever played River Raid? Did you know River Raid was designed by a woman? It's like my favorite Atari game. It's super good. Yes, enough talking about video games. Until next time, there's the camera.